My name is Mark Keene from Keene Engineering. I'm going to show you a brand new model we've come up with. I believe we're calling it a 2004 PJSNLK. And what it stands for is it's the 2004 dredge, and it comes with a power jet, a suction nozzle, and even a lay kit. So I'm excited to show you how this new system works, and it's probably one of the biggest major improvements on it, at least on strictly the dredging end, is the capability to be able to switch from a suction nozzle to a power jet and also greatly reduce your rock jams. Traditionally, when you buy a Go Dredge, you buy it as either a suction nozzle configuration or a power jet configuration. I'm going to just go through briefly what the two systems look like, and then I'll cover the differences in what they do. So currently what you see the dredge setup is here is with a power jet system, and it's pretty simple. We go from the sluice box into a jet flare into the power jet. Then you have a single suction hose and you have one tip to suck up your material. I find this to be probably my favorite for two basic reasons. You only have one hose to mess with, and it's easy to manipulate this into cracks and crevices and things like that. So I really like this type of a system. The only problem is, let's just pretend for a second that this bench is my water level. You do have to keep this underwater, because if you lift it above the water, it's going to suck air through the system. The hose is going to float, and it's going to blow a big belch of air through to the sluice box, and that can cause you to lose prime momentarily. Now again, as soon as you put the suction hose back down, at that point it'll start resuming suction in about probably 2 to 3 seconds. But for most conditions, you just want to try to focus on keeping this underwater. Now the suction nozzle system, which is this, and basically you will have this attached in replacing the standard suction tip. Now, the suction nozzle has one big advantage, is that you can be sucking half air and half water, and it will always maintain suction. You'll still get the air belching through the suction hose system and into the box, but it's going to have a constant flow of water and material going through it, so you can even be half in the air and half out, sucking up the material. The only kind of a downfall of a suction nozzle, or its main downfall, is that you're going to lose probably somewhere in the range of about, let's say, 15–20% of your suction, as opposed to this, and that's based on just the water dynamics of how a jet system versus this. It's always more efficient to pull material than it is to push material, and that's because of friction loss. But again, the suction nozzle is better for the extreme shallow water condition, and the power jet's typically better for most other applications. Now, another major difference between the two that I find to be one of my biggest reasons I would choose a power jet over a suction nozzle is because these come in what's called an oversized jet configuration. And what that means is that the idea of the suction hose here, since it's a 2-inch dredge, is 2 inches. And then when you go into the power jet itself, the inner diameter is actually larger than the diameter of the suction hose. So you go from 2 inch to 2 1/8, and then when it enters into your jet flare, which is this gray device, then it opens up to like 2 1/4. So there's no bottlenecks in this system. So by limiting that bottlenecks, you reduce your rock jams, I'd say something like by 80%. It's a huge improvement over this type of system will tend to jam up more frequently. So for that reason, I'd say most people are more comfortable with the power jet. I'm going to give you a little closer view of how the oversized power jet system works. Now, if we look here, you have 2 latches in the system, and with the latch system, it allows you to quickly remove and add this quick coupling system back to the jet. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're out dredging, if you get a rock jam in the system, to be able to take that thing apart in a matter of seconds, it just saves so much time and so much energy. Now, what's interesting, in the past, when we used this type of a system, it really didn't work with the suction nozzle very well, because this was now in your way. See, when we used to attach the suction nozzle to the jet flare, we had a metal adapter that slid inside this, and then you have a clamp on the outside. Now with this new system here, which I'll show you in a moment, it makes the whole conversion quite a bit better. So let me latch this back up. All right, and I'm going to just do a quick switch over from the power jet to this adapter here. So I'll unlatch my jet system, my quick coupler, I'll slide this out of here. Just put that on the ground here for the moment. And now, what's really nice, I have a T-handle clamp system here, and with the T-handle clamp, you can tighten and loosen things really easy, so you don't have to carry a bunch of tools, in other words. So I'm going to go ahead, slide this into the jet flare, snug it up with my T-handle clamp, so that's nice and locked in there. And now, I can grab my standard, the bullet end on the suction hose, slides in there, and it latches down into place. I mean, again, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're out in the field and you're trying to assemble things, not having to carry additional tools is really a nice thing to save you a lot of time. So now what you'd have to do is you come over here. Basically, you probably remove your suction tip. I'd have a hose clamp on there, of course. And you would assemble your suction nozzle, twist it in there, and then you attach a longer piece of pressure hose, which the kit comes with. Here's your longer pressure hose right here. And you would attach that from here to the discharge of the pump. All right, so like I said, it took me less than 5 minutes to do the conversion. What I did do is I switched over to a longer pressure hose. See, when you're running your power jet system, you run a pressure hose that's probably 5 or 6 feet long. When you're running your suction nozzle with, let's say, 15 feet of suction hose, I like to set it up with about 17 feet of pressure hose. Just makes it easier to move around and so on. And especially if you do a bank mount system, I like to have a little bit longer pressure hose. It gives me a little more freedom to set my dredge up wherever I want. I like to use a stiff pressure hose. I mean, there are lay flat hoses and things like that also work, but this kind of pressure hose, it never fails. And I also find that it's much easier to work with because you don't have to concentrate on keeping your lay flat hose straight. This you can put at some relatively sharp bends, you'll never kink on you. So I really do like running the solid pressure hose whenever I can. If I had a pump for long distances, I'd definitely switch to more of a lay flat type hose, but for dredging with a suction nozzle, I always prefer to use the solid pressure hose. All right, so I've gone ahead and removed the flotation and the frame assembly just to make the machine much smaller and lighter, more compact. Now, a lot of guys use it in this type of configuration, they just never had the new lake system. But if you're a hardcore gold dredger and you want to get back into these little creeks and streams and get some of the back country, or go back where you're going to be, we'll just say you won't be noticed as easily. It's nice if you can get back into the more difficult areas to get into. So why would you want to carry your floats and frame? You really don't. So that's why I really like this new lake system. This is really the same lake system that we utilize on our Mini-Max high bankers and also our brand new A52S. What I really like with this quick setup sluice box is we used to hike a backpack dredge in about 2.5 hours into a remote location here in Southern California. And it was really tough to get into. And we're actually going through branches and stuff that are overcoming the river. So this allowed us to make a much more smaller and compact setup. But when I got to our location, I did a kind of the old school method where I just had to mount the sluice box on the ground. And honestly, it probably took us 15 minutes to 45 minutes to get that sluice box set up just right. And then when I wanted to make adjustments, it was very difficult. We had to shove branches or rocks underneath the sluice. So this new lake system on a dredge is a complete game changer. It makes the job so much easier and so much faster to get set up. All right, when we do some hardcore backpacking, probably the majority of the time we'll end up using the suction nozzle system. But if I do have a stream that has, let's say, 8 inches of water or a foot of water, I'm definitely going to go with the power jet. And it's so cool to be able to switch back and forth. All I have to do is unsnap the quick release system, loosen up my T-handle, take my power jet, slide it in, tighten this up, and then slide in my suction hose and lock it in position. Of course, I'd have to attach the longer pressure hose to it, but I mean, how cool is that? It is such a time saver to have all this quick release requiring no tools. Let me show you a couple of the new features. We've already covered the adapting from the suction nozzle to the power jet, how easy it is. We've discussed the lake systems and how easy it is to switch back and forth between your pontoons in your frame. Last but not least, I'd like to cover a couple of the minor improvements we've made in our recovery system lately. It's a fairly simple little dredge. You've got a mix up in the front. You got a classifier screen. You got some Miracle Mat, which does a really good job on your fine gold. You've got a combination of a low profile riffle that's underneath the classifier screen, so it really slows down the material underneath it. And there's a little bit of expanded metal, miner's moss, and carpet. And then down here we have more of a conventional Hungarian type riffle design that does a good job in a variety of conditions. There's a lot of hoopla by different riffle designs and things lately, and this might even have some upcoming changes coming up soon, but this basic design works really well. See, in a gold dredge sluice box, there's a lot of chaos. You have belches of airs going through, you have fluctuating water flows, you have a lot of difference of angles and pitches and things like that. But when you mix it up with a variety of different riffles, including the old school miner's moss and the ribbed green carpet, you have a lot of you got a lot of forgiveness in the riffle design. In other words, you could really mess up and it still holds on to the gold. So I really like sometimes this old school recovery system as opposed to, let's say, an all rubber mat riffle that if you were to have fluctuations in water or belching of air, it's just going to kiss that gold goodbye. It's going to carry it out. So dredge is a different thing from a sluice box or a cleanup system or even a high banker. You have to have a recovery box that'll handle a variety of conditions. Okay, now I'll show you a couple more things here too. This one we're also going to offer a new tip. So when you switch from your suction nozzle to your power jet, you just remove your suction nozzle. Hopefully it'll come out easy. Yeah, it's coming out okay. And we have a new, I call it a mono handle tip. I'm going to put this standard on the machine. This is just kind of a more deluxe system, but I mean, that just makes it so much easier to manipulate this into cracks and crevices and under rocks and so on. So that's a real nice feature, improvement. So I'm going to show you some of the other improvements we made. This is the flotation system you saw underneath it. And we've done a couple new improvements on it. You'll notice that we put a strap underneath it, because a lot of guys are dragging this over rocks and gravel and really rough terrain. What happened is the old bungee cords, even though they're tight, they sometimes got knocked off. But with these solid metal clamps, we found out that the floating frame could be dragged through over really undesirable conditions, so it's a lot more tougher. So that's one thing we've done. Also, we have a slightly improved jet support system, and we put a nice handle here, so if you want to pick your dredge up and you want to literally drag it around, or if you want to tie a rope on it, you can tie your rope onto that point right there, and you can pull the dredge to the water really easy. The only difference is you wrap your hose up around the sluice box and lay it all up on top. But this new dredge system with all the improvements, I mean, it is the bomb. It is hands down the most versatile, high-powered piece of equipment, fine gold recovery dredge you'll ever see anywhere in the world. Nothing compares. And especially being able to switch back and forth between the two configurations is amazing. And having the legs, I mean, you can set it up in a matter of seconds. So really, you won't find a better machine in the world. So I'm really happy to show you the new Keene Super Combo Dredge.